Hi Virgo, and welcome to your horoscope for September 2024. Thanks for joining me. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Now I'm going to do the horoscope a little differently this month. Please watch them in this order: rising sign first, then sun sign, and then finally for your moon sign. And I'm based in the UK, so my horoscopes are based on the UK time zone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the month of September into 4 weeks. And I'm going to pay particular attention to the moon. The moon takes 2.5 days to go through each sign. So any given week, we've got the moon in about 3 or 4 signs, which has a strong influence on what that week is going to be like. But I'm also going to have a look at what houses it moves through in your chart to give you an idea of what area of life this shows up in. Okay, so Virgo, for September, I've got really good news for you going into this month because your ruler, Mercury, has gone direct on the 28th of August. So if you've had any communication issues or problems with transportation, expect those to ease off. But this last retrograde particularly was very, very difficult for Virgos. Self-criticism, self-doubt, like going inwardly too much. So expect things to be very, very different here in September. So week 1, Sunday to Sunday, 1st to 8th of September. And when I mention the week from now on, if I say the beginning of the week, I mean Monday, Tuesday, middle of the week is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, end of the week is Saturday, Sunday. So at the beginning of September here, we've got the moon in your sign in Virgo, and it's in your first house of self. So what you'll notice going into September is that you have a greater understanding of who you are, where your strengths and weaknesses are, what you're able to do really well, what works for you, where you need more information. You ought to have come out of August with a really good sense of self, but we've got a few other things happening at the very beginning of the month which will influence you. So on the 2nd of September, Pluto, the planet of transformation and change, death and rebirth, that retrogrades into Capricorn, and it stays there until the 19th of November 2024. And then it moves into Aquarius again and stays there until February 2044. So this is important, and I made a separate video on this in January. Have a look at that, please, because Pluto is rebirth, and it was in Capricorn since 2008. It then went into Aquarius in January this year, right? And that combination of Pluto and Capricorn isn't so good. It's, I work hard, I try and secure everything, and the rug keeps being pulled out from under me, and I just don't get to where I want to be, right? Pluto and Aquarius is much more positive. It's a much better fit as far as I'm concerned, because it's the rebirth of ideas in the sense of unity and humanity and invention and doing things which are going to improve our everyday lives, right? So in your case, Virgo, this retrogrades into Capricorn in your 5th house of what you love, romance, what you're passionate about in work, children, anything that really makes you feel the love, right? So it's at 29 degrees in Capricorn. And for you, it's going to be an examination of what do I love in my life? And does that work for me? Does it work for the other person? Is it healthy, or does it need changing? Does it need letting go of? Or do I discover something new? So August for you would have been, again, a time of excessive self-criticism, but what that's left now is the realization that certain things in your life you're not particularly fond of and you have no use for. So this is an opportunity to rework the structure of your life now that you're different, to appear differently in your life and to have a better outcome. And that kind of vibe, it peaks on the 3rd of September, which is when we have a new moon in Virgo. So the moon is pitch black. It pulls lots of energy in order to start its next 28-day cycle, and it's pulling in your Virgo energy. So what seeds am I going to plant? What direction do I want to grow in? And there is an examination of relationships and what you love to do, but there's also an examination on your career, whether you love that, what you're getting out of it, what you're putting into it, and it's kind of up for discussion. It's almost like you feel that you've graduated the school of self. You know yourself much better now internally. Therefore, the things externally ought to make more sense. A job that I love, not just tolerate. People in my life who I love and care about, not friends who try and swindle me, for instance. So it's really about perfecting the outer world with what you've experienced internally. And also something that's going to affect you for the entire month of September is that Mars, the planet of masculinity and drive and ambition, it goes out of your 10th house of work in Gemini and it goes into your 11th house of hopes and dreams in Cancer. So what you're really going to be interested in September is doing things for yourself that make you feel like, I am parenting myself. It's like I'm reparenting my inner child. I know who I am. I want the best for me. So I'm going to make changes, even if it requires some work. I'm going to make changes so that I feel more loved and supported and comfortable in my own life. So the beginning of the week, 1st and 2nd, we've got the moon in Virgo. Then it goes into Libra on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th of September. And it sits in your 2nd house of money. And that's really interesting because I have a greater sense of self. How am I now going to make connections, either with individuals or with the world, to produce something that I'm interested in, something that I love, and how can I use that to improve my practical circumstances? So this is about recognizing that you have some particular gift or talent and that you can translate it into an activity that serves as a business, your own business, or that informs your existing work. Ultimately, you're able to express something that makes the entire situation, for the want of a better expression, more beautiful or more valuable or more accessible to others. Then at the end of the week, the 6th and 7th, the moon goes into Scorpio in your 3rd house of communication. And just these last 2 days of the week, watch out for being overly sensitive to criticism. If things don't go your way, you may become a little frustrated. And you may also feel that if you're being disrespected, that you want to retaliate and launch a counterattack. Just try and avoid that, because it's about understanding yourself and what's really important to you and moving towards that, rather than getting into conflict with things that don't work anyway. I really think that here in September, you've graduated from this sense that I need to change certain attitudes or certain dynamics. You see them for what they are and you're happy to leave them. Lean into the ones that work and walk away from the ones that don't work so much. So in the first week, the moon goes through the first 3 houses, so the first quadrant, and that's really about who am I, what's my perspective of myself and the world, and how do I bring that together in order to create a living for myself? How do I make myself independent with this new knowledge that I have? Week 2, Monday to Sunday, the 9th to 15th of September, we now have the moon in Sagittarius, and it's in your 4th house at the beginning of the week. So this is interesting because the moon is your heart, and with Sagittarius, there's a great sense of adventure or the desire to experience something new. And with this being at the very bottom of your charts, your roots, I think you're now looking for something that matches the way you feel and something that provides you with pleasure or comfort or a sense of belonging. And the first 2 days of the 2nd week, the 9th and 10th of September, I think is a good time to explore and to visit new places, or to look into different areas of study, or to meet new people, because it is all about the new and finding a thing or an activity or an area of interest or a person who's going to feature largely in your future. So I want to expand my family. I want to feel more settled in my life. In the middle of the week, on the 11th, 12th, and 13th, the moon goes into Capricorn, and that goes into your 5th house of what you love. So this is an interesting period here, because it'll become very, very clear to you again, this is what I love to do, and this is what I'm very happy spending my time on. But on the flip side, what may feel a little difficult are certain romantic relationships, and you may not be particularly optimistic when it comes to love and romance over this few-day period. It may be that, I want some space to myself. This is too demanding. I don't want to work for another person. I really want to focus on what I've got going on and what I can contribute and how that can transform into a career. But I'm certainly not so interested in really extending all my time and energy and focus on meeting someone else's needs. By the weekend, it changes again, because the moon goes into Aquarius in your 6th house, and this is back to my working life, the everyday structure of my life. How long do I spend commuting? How many hours do I do? And what new ideas can I implement so that I feel better about my everyday experience? So in this 2nd week, we've got the moon going through your second quadrant, houses 4, 5, and 6. So this is really what makes me feel like I belong and I'm home. What do I love? And how can I structure that into my life so I'm happy with my everyday experience? The highlights of week 2 are that on the 9th of September, we've got your ruler Mercury entering Virgo, the sign that it rules, until the 26th of September, and that moves into your first house of self. So, whereas in August, you may have experienced major delays and really hammered yourself a little bit, here in September, from the 9th till the 26th, it's pretty much guaranteed that you're not going to get things wrong, that you truly understand yourself, how you can apply that understanding in your working life so that work goes better or that the work itself is better. And if there are big decisions about relationships or about particular circumstances, you'll understand very much whether those are still accurate reflections of where you are in your life or whether they need to be changed. And the other great thing is then that you're willing to do the work to make those changes. So you're super hands-on here. On the 11th of September, the moon is in its second quarter, and that's at 22 degrees in your 4th house. And again, I want to find a new family. I want to belong to something else. I am tired and I've outgrown my circumstances as they are. I want to go on an adventure. I want to meet new people. I want to learn new information. I want to make changes. So this is really you, Virgo, during your birthday month, kind of experiencing this rebirth and this optimism that you can make connections which are even more fulfilling in future on top of the connections that you have already. Week 3, Monday to Sunday, 16th to 22nd of September, the moon is now in Pisces in your 7th house of relationships at the beginning of the week. So on the 16th and 17th, you're now going to be very forgiving when it comes to your relationships, but you'll also have a great insight into who you are and what is going to work for you as far as relationships are concerned, and the type of person that would make you feel like I am home, I found what I'm looking for. In week 3, though, it's not just the moon moving through your 7th house. On the 17th of September, we have a supermoon, the second one in a row, and it's a full moon in Pisces. So it's nearer to the Earth, so it appears larger, and it also has a stronger influence on you. But it's also a lunar eclipse on the North Node. So you're receiving something by your feelings. It's in between Saturn and Neptune. So some sort of spiritual truth is going to appear, and it's going to have to do with your relationships. And you know what I said earlier about you may not be particularly optimistic or willing to do the work when it comes to love and romance. You're focused on other things. During this supermoon on the 17th, one, you recognize that you are loved by the universe, by some loving higher power, and that you are the way you are exactly for the right reasons. But what I also think you'll start to consider, and what's being downloaded with that, is that there is a lid for every pot. If I want to be in a relationship and I haven't found that, it doesn't mean that I'll never find it. If I feel like I am too complicated for relationships, I now see myself in a loving, different kind of way that again opens that door and that opportunity to say, you know what, I can be in a consistent, long-term, loving partnership with an equal, and that's something that could enrich my life. So for you, this supermoon, oh, and what I didn't mention is that an eclipse, the influence isn't just for a number of days, it's for 6 months, right? Because the process is interrupted by the eclipse. So for you, the next 6 months, Virgo, are really like a belief in love and an optimism about relationships, and the realization that you have a lot to contribute to another person's life. So if you have become discouraged by the idea of love and romance, if you've had disappointments in the past, this is the universe reminding you that yes, you can tailor your work and your relationships so that they do work for you, and that is a good thing, but also that there's something much greater that's possible for you, and to really expect that and see it as something that's a done deal. It already lives in spiritual truth, so it's just about you waiting for it to show up in the actuals, in the physical world. On the 22nd of September, let me just go through the moon phases first. So the moon is in Pisces, first 2 days of the week. Then the 18th, 19th, 20th, it goes into Aries in your 8th house. And that's incredible because what you'll be feeling is that I want to make all of these new connections, romantically want to adapt my work, but also this 3-day period, 18th, 19th, 20th, what organizations and institutions do I want to connect to? Do I want to get my product in some sort of supermarket, for instance, or do I want my manuscript to be published by Llewellyn rather than self-published, whatever it may be. So if you're trying to get your foot in the door of any kind of organization, these are the days to do it. And then on the 21st and 22nd, the moon is in Taurus, in your 9th house of travel and expansion. So the 21st and 22nd, those are the best days for you to travel, to go sightseeing, to take a little bit of time off work, to just go look at things that are unfamiliar, that will motivate you, inspire you. You may even receive some symbols via the things you're looking at, which will give you more information on this new path forward. So in the 3rd week, we've got the moon going through houses 7, 8, and 9. So it's really about my relationships with people out there in the public, acquaintances and colleagues and companies, and how can I grow into that direction and have more to do with people out there in the world. So it's really perfect for anyone who's trying to connect their work with an established business, or anyone who wants to work in a partnership or collaborate. It's both helpful in terms of expanding your working life and the amount of people that are in it, but also your personal life, so making friends and people who you don't know yet. Week 4, Monday to Sunday, 23rd of September until the 30th of September. Beginning of the week, we've got the moon in Gemini. It's now in your 10th house. So if you need to do any public presentation work, if you need to interview, if you need to present your ideas, if there's anything that involves you talking or writing or articulating your point of view, giving your opinion, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th are best for that. Also, if there are any risks that you can take in your working life, like if you have to volunteer for a particular project and the outcome of that project is then very significant, so some people may hesitate to volunteer, jump into that kind of thing, you'll do really well. The middle of the week then, 26th, 27th, we've got the moon in Cancer, and it's next to Mars in Cancer in your 11th house. So that's a really sweet time for you where you can have a very different experience via another person. It's likely that someone surprises you with affection or with a kind gesture or a kind word that again makes you feel lovable and that love is possible. It's really interesting because Virgo, you guys are very good at making sense of information, right? But the problem with Virgo, I have found, and feel free to disagree with me, is that once a conclusion has been reached, it's very hard for a Virgo to change their mind. So this is a month for you where the universe changes your mind for you and says things are going to be better than you're expecting. So please look up to this, look forward to good stuff. At the beginning of the 4th week, we've got Venus going into Scorpio, and that goes into your 3rd house of communication. So there's a longing to really articulate things in your work which are meaningful and which have something to do with you that you care about. But also there's a desire to be seen and heard by another person and to have that sense of spiritual and emotional and physical connection. So this is a month where everything gets bigger because you feel good and you feel compelled to kind of cast your net wider than you usually would, and you will meet great people in this month who will help you accomplish all of these things, whether it's in work or relationship. On the 24th of September, the moon is in its 4th quarter, and that's right next to Jupiter. And that still is a wonderful time for you to work with communication, problem solve in your career, but also look at what can I do to realize my hopes and dreams sooner rather than later. And finally, on the 26th of September, your ruler Mercury ingresses into Libra until the 13th of October. And I'm just looking for the moon. Where is it? Oh, 26th of September. Oh, excuse me. I was looking for the moon, but I said Mercury ingresses into Libra. That makes more sense. Okay, so on the 26th of September, Mercury moves into Libra and it goes into your 2nd house. So at this point, at the end of the month, you've got Mercury, the midheaven, which is your work, the Sun, identity, South Node, where you're coming from, Black Moon, Lilith, and Juno, summertime. They're all in Libra in your second house. So the end of the month is really a fabulous time to consider the ideas that have occurred to you in September, how they relate to work, and how you can translate them into a paying job. So the beginning of the week, I mentioned that the moon is in Gemini, and it was floating around your 10th house. Then it joined Cancer on the 26th, 27th, but finally it goes into Leo on the 28th, 29th, and 30th of September, and it's in your 12th house of spirituality. And that is an indicator that by the end of the month, you're going to be celebrating certain actions that you've taken to tailor your working life and your personal relationships so that it's a better fit for you in your life. So for you, this is a very satisfying month where you can get organized, particularly in those two areas, and even, delve into companies and big organizations, but you're really on top of things. And if you pay attention and trust your kind of inner voice that says, this is who I am, what I enjoy, and how do I acquire or bring more of it into my life, you're really going to be delighted with the outcome by the end of the month. So in this final week, the moon goes through your fourth quadrant, houses 10, 11, and 12, and that's really my work. How is my work conducive to realizing my hopes and dreams, but also on a spiritual level, am I working in a way that I'm satisfied with and that I find meaningful and positive? So you really go all the way around, and it all starts with this greater sense of self, which then translates into you being in a better position by the end of the month. So I hope that gives you an idea of what you'll be working with. It looks super exciting for you guys, especially because it's this time of year. If you would like a personal reading with me, please get in touch via my website. It's gregoryscott.com. On the front page, click on book your reading to audio reading with me. In my personal readings, I draw up your birth chart by taking your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. If you don't have the time of birth, then don't worry. There's a process called chart rectification, which you can also order on my website, gregoryscott.com. And that's a process where I manually work out your time of birth, which is really important because the chart changes every 4 minutes. So the closer the time I have, the better the chart is. So if you want to look at your transits in terms of what's coming up in future, strengths and weaknesses, actual locations to live, if you're going through changes and you want to see what the best way forward is, what's your life purpose, any of those questions, please do get in touch with me for a personal reading. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, please, so it shows up in searches, and subscribe to the channel for more videos. Check out some of my other videos, the new moon and the full moon horoscopes. I also do a daily tarot reading. Check that out, and have a wonderful September. All the best.